Here we go. It's the DC Sports Huddle, our weekly get-together. We appreciate you finding us, and it's sponsored by MGM National Harbor. It's time to change the game at BetMGM Sports. That's time to change the game at BetMGM Sports. I'm Dave Johnson with Rob Woodfork. Dave Preston already is hopeful that there'll be a baseball settlement because he's got his spring colors that he's wearing. So obviously that is good. We don't need to talk anymore. The baseball lockout is probably going to be settled. And of course, George Wallace, who was in the blue uniform that I recommended for today's DC Sports Huddle. Lots to talk about. We've got the Wizards. I'm wearing the hat not to cheer on the Wizards, but I haven't had a chance to do my hair since morning drive. So, I decided to go with the hat. We're going to talk about what's going on with the Wizards. The Capitals jumping back up. But Juwan Howard, our friend from our time with the Wizards, he is a first-class guy who paid his dues as a head coach or as a coach with the Miami Heat to get the opportunity to coach his alma mater, Michigan, but sparking a lot of controversy as throwing a punch at a Wisconsin assistant coach in the handshake line. The handshake line, I believe, is one of the great traditions of sports, whether it's hockey. We teach our kids at the end of a game that you shake hands with the other team. It's just part of it. Once the game ends, the game should end. That's my initial thought on that. George, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, by the way, in case you haven't listened to Tom Izzo on his rant about getting rid of the handshake line, I mean, really good. He's basically saying that is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard to talk about getting rid of the handshake line. He goes, this is what's wrong with our country. We already teach our kids this, this, and this. So,
his team went out and lost by 26 right after he said it too.
Yeah,
that's okay.
We still did the handshake line.
There's winners and losers in sports, but if we've gotten to a point, to Tom Izzo's point, if we've gotten to a point in this country that after just playing a game, we're not talking some of the other serious stuff going on in life, that we can't shake the opponent's hand, I think we've lost the plot.
Yep.
Because I don't care if they're professional, college, lots on the line, millions. It's a game. It's a game. You're supposed to respect the game, enjoy the moment, not start a brawl after it's over.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and the fact that if people are literally talking about we have to get rid of a handshake line because there's a chance a coach could throw a punch. Well, that's a huge issue right there. Yeah, I mean, it was just terrible as a bad look. I mean, look, he's upset about calling the timeout. Okay, fine. You're pressing with 18 seconds left on a bunch of scrubs that are on the floor for Wisconsin. You are taught to coach until the final buzzer. I have no problem with either of that, pressing or calling a timeout, because it is a learning situation. If you have guys on the floor that aren't used to being on the floor and you're being pressed, okay, even if there's 19 seconds left, if you're going to do that, I'm going to do this. And we're going to go over things and how to break the press, so on and so forth. I have no problem with that. Juwan Howard didn't want to shake the coach's hand after the game. He blew by him. Yes. Should he have grabbed him? Wisconsin guard grabbed him? Probably not. Not a good idea. But he was trying to explain the timeout thing to him afterwards. There's absolutely no excuse to throw a punch at anybody. No excuse to put hands on anybody. It's just, I mean, and for Juwan Howard, this is now 2 strikes. Last year, he threatened to kill Mark Turgeon in a heated, disagreement after a game. So, and he basically said, I'm sorry, the Detroit street in me came out. Well, you can't really go on and say that and then come out and throw a punch too. So he's got 2 strikes against him. Do I think he should have been fired? No. This end of the regular season suspension, fine. He should have gotten the 5 games and to go on and coach in the postseason, because he is a good coach. And like they mentioned, Dave, he's paid his dues to get back to the point to coach Michigan. It's been an emotional time for him. He's had some good teams. This year's been struggling, but absolutely no excuse to put our hands on anybody after a game like that, because, you are a leader of men. You are setting the example. Yes, it is a heated moment. The tensions are high after a big contest like that, and a big game like that. But you are in that position because you can handle situations like that. There is absolutely no excuse for it. So hopefully he'll come back in the postseason. And here's it real quick. The other thing is, he apologizes a day later, and people are going to, get on him for the apology because did he really even mean it the way he said it after, his words. But he had to issue some sort of statement. He did. He owned that and move on.
Well, and I knew, he was in trouble when his own athletic director, rightfully so, said you just can't have this. It's not a good look for the school. Again, to your point, a leader to men, there is going to be heated situations in life, much more than a basketball game. And if you can't set the example that you can't control it, I think that's a leadership problem too. Dave
Right.
Preston.
I think you guys are spot on. I think I'm surprised that Greg Gard did not get a suspension. He did get fined, but he kind of stirred the pot as well. And then it was almost the classic of, jumping right in there and being like, oh no, it wasn't me. There was instigation between both of these head coaches. Somebody did a deep dive recently on Juwan Howard's behavior late in games that have been blowouts where he's been up big and he's taken timeouts. So there's a lot of, we don't exist in a vacuum. And maybe Greg Gard was, there was some emphasis on that from Gard to say, hey, he calls timeouts when they're up late. Maybe I can do the same. I feel that Gard should have been suspended as well because he has as much to bear to blame in this as Juwan Howard. I think cooler heads eventually will prevail, but I'm having played youth sports, having played at the high school level as well. Handshake lines after you lose, after you win, after you tie even. That's, I guess, where that whole thing began with me. It's just something you do. And you know what? You compete, you put your heart out there on the line, whether it's the court, whether it's the field, whether it's the track. And then afterwards, you shake hands and you move on. And if we can't do that, what's the point in having good competition? And so I'm a fan of keeping the handshake lines, especially in college basketball and other sports. And it's just a matter of, keeping a cooler head. And it's very difficult to keep a cool head. I've been in situations where it's just a pickup game and it's easy to get hot. So I understand tempers boiling, and hopefully we can all move on from this, Michigan and Wisconsin.
I've coached the WTOP sales team against an ad agency, and I've never seen more violence in a basketball game in my life, but they still went through a handshake line. And apparently we're still in business of radio station because we're still getting, ad money coming in from that ad agency. There's another recommendation of video. Jimmy Patsos, our good friend, the former Maryland assistant coach. There's a video of him doing an imaginary handshake after his Iona team had beaten Ryder because the Ryder coach and players didn't go, or the Ryder coach didn't come out to shake his hand. And so Jimmy Patsos is just going down an imaginary handshake line. Rob.
Well, first of all, I played on the WTOP softball team in Media League, and I can tell you firsthand that the sales newsroom game is way more heated than anything we were doing against outside competition. But I digress. I have a different opinion on this, guys. There's first I'll speak to this one particular instance. There's kind of there's sort of some racial undertones there because you have a white coach who stops a black coach and then proceeds to first of all, he's the one who initiated the whole thing by putting his hands on him and then sort of talking to him like he's a student. And that's kind of what escalated the situation. Now, should Juwan have, swung on somebody? No, absolutely not. But, there was a cause and effect there that I haven't heard a lot of reference to. So that needs to be said. The second thing is we can't act like sports are this like pure thing. When you talk about the NCAA or professional sports, these are businesses for all intents and purposes now because of all the money that's attached to it. So it's like, yeah, I agree. It would be great if we could all just kind of shake hands and everybody be friends afterward. And I think probably 9.5 times out of 10, that's exactly what happens after handshake lines. But in so many avenues in life and in society, the actions of the few kind of ruins it for everybody else. So, I mean, there's way more downside to the handshake line than there is an upside, with the, just all the good feelings and sportsmanship and all of that in the aftermath. So, obviously, again, I'm not trying to make excuses for Juwan. What he did was unacceptable. He said as much, and I'm hoping there won't be a third instance because it might cost him his job. But there's just no reason for it. And there's a lot of things. It's sort of dangerous to just continue to do something just because we've always done it that way. And I've said many times, and I know this is an unpopular opinion, but it's the same thing with the national anthem before games. We're not at war, people. There's no reason to have a war hymn played before the game. And if there wasn't, then Colin Kaepernick is probably still in the NFL right now. So there's just, we can't have it both ways. We can't treat it like it's a business and all of that, and then try to have it be this wholesome thing as if 7-year-old children are still playing it.
Yeah, but I don't think it's 7-year-old children, and I'll disagree on this point that if it's a business, then you're held to a higher standard. It is a business, whether it's college or whatever. So then your behavior should be at a higher standard. Is it, and let's talk about the political climate we're dealing with in this country. Should that mean, that we always say we want our political leaders to act civilly, and they're in heated, passionate discussions about real issues, not whether a timeout was called with 15 seconds. And we see videos in other places where, parliament situations or legislative situations, I'm not calling it any specific country, but I've seen these videos where you have politicians brawling. Because that's a serious professional situation, then is that okay for them to stop being civil? And I think, we are on a slippery slope where we somehow don't know how to be civil, and it's as simple as a handshake line. And guess what? If you feel you can't control your emotions for some reason, you're that riled up, then just turn and go to the locker room. And like Jimmy Patsos, you'll end up doing an imaginary handshake line. You need to understand your own emotions.
Right. I don't disagree with that. But what I'm saying is, and I'm going to use something that I know well, and that's divorce. So if you get divorced, you come out of court, you get, there's all kinds of hard feelings and back and forth and all that. Nobody's asking you to shake hands with your ex right there in the courtroom. That comes years down the line. So that's something that it's the timing of it. Immediately after competition, and this is something I'll say something that I heard on ESPN. I think it was Seth Greenberg, the former Hokies coach back in the day. Having the experience of being a coach, what he said in that particular instance with the Michigan-Wisconsin game is what Gard should have done was not try to confront him right then and there when emotions are still high. Let him get to the locker room. You let your guys shower and all that stuff, and then pull him aside in the tunnel, away from cameras and everything else, and then have that discussion. So to me, it's about the timing of it. Having the handshake immediately after the game. Like if it was a contentious game, sometimes you just got to salute from afar to avoid some sort of altercation.
And I agree. I'm fine with that. I mean, I agree with that. It's just, I think what Gard tried to do is because Juwan didn't shake his hand, he kind of blew by him. So he's like, wait a minute, let me tell you. I think he was just like, let me tell you what happened.
But you're right. I don't know if Juwan says he grabbed him. I look at the replay, I see Juwan grab his shoulder. And I think the fact that Juwan wouldn't do the simple act of shaking his hand, that's when he decided, well, I better explain what he's sort of
I think you're right.
about. And that's where, again, Juwan should have, if he obviously can't control his emotions, because guess what? If you get cut off in traffic and you can't control your emotions, there's not a cooling off period. But we're taught you can't just decide, you know what, I'm going to commit a road rage incident. And I know it sounds like I'm making a reach here, but the point is, part of leadership is understanding your emotions. And that's something that Juwan, quite frankly, has to get out of, learn, because otherwise a promising coaching career is going to be short-circuited. So anyway, we will, and by the way, we don't shake hands now at the end of this huddle. So that's because it's
there's a distance.
So Rob, you did a wonderful thing this week with the suggestions about the Commanders mascot. I didn't have one because I couldn't think of one. I couldn't name the last mascot of the Washington football team, even if we had one. But you had a
was it Chief Z?
Unofficially, I think.
Yeah. So, but you suggest we should have burgundy and gold. Burgundy N as an initial goal.
Burgundy and gold, yes. Basically, it's the general from the discount car insurance commercials. Because what would be more Washington for them to basically avoid the most popular name amongst the fan base, Red Wolves, because of copyright issues, and then step into a copyright issue by having a character who is almost exactly like the guy from the discount car commercials. So that just feels like the most Washington results you could get in something like that. And a given, and this is probably a bad joke, but given what their name used to be, then it gives you some sort of like idea as to what the N stands for in the burgundy and gold. So there you go.
One thing I'll say is that no matter this is
Good night, everybody.
Yeah, there you go. This was our last show.
Nice.
That until Daniel Snyder sells the team, and I'm not even an advocate of him selling the team. I'm just pointing out that until he is, well, no, I know, but my point is, until he sells the team, no matter what mascot is picked, etc., it's never going to be acceptable, or it's reached that point, and it almost reminds me of the Peter Angelo situation with the Orioles, and he was accused of far less, but there comes a point for an owner. I've seen this so many times in soccer. No matter what you do to rectify your reputation, there's no turning back. So you can come up with the best mascot in the world, but if it's your mascot, done deal.
I think I recognize that in the 21st century, you're not going to get a full-time mascot because they're doing what, 1 to 2 preseason games, 8 to 9 regular season games. It's not like Gee Whiz or what was the winger? What was the Caps, the Eagle guy who they got rid of, or Screech at Nationals games. He's got 81 dates. Same with the Racing Presidents. They've got a solid schedule coming their way. This is just 8 to 2. So I think what you almost have to find somebody who has another gig. I'm thinking Cavman, also known as Kippy Cavalier, works down in Charlottesville. He's there on Saturdays for the UVA games, and then he's at John Paul Jones Arena for the basketball games. Bring him up, give him like a Commander's hat, let him be a Kippy Commander for those limited days. Also, I threw out former Virginia Governor Terry McAuliffe. He lost his bid for re-election. He can still use some work. He's very engaging. I remember when he came on and did Ask the Governor at WTOP. He's a really good sport. I remember one time I asked him, he is from the Syracuse area, and he attended the Syracuse-Virginia game that the Orange one got to the Final Four while he was governor of Virginia. And he was still a good sport, even though I asked him, where did your loyalty stand? And if the Commanders ever do move to Virginia, what better a live mascot than a guy who has experience as a commander? He played a general in a few episodes of Turn years ago. So Governor McAuliffe, Washington Commanders want you.
There's only one person on this panel who would know that Terry McAuliffe was in Turn. And
yes,
we all know who that is.
And that's
I'm waiting for Turn 2 to come out.
Yeah, you just triggered a stadium debate. So that's good. You brought up 2 issues in one. All right.
What's the Patriot guy? Preston?
Pat Patriot, maybe?
Yeah. What about somebody like that as a commander? I mean, look, here's the deal.
Cobra Commander.
Huh?
Cobra Commander from the G.I. Joe. Yeah.
Here's the deal. Just come up with something cool. If you don't want the W, put it on the helmet. Just win football games. I don't care about anything else. Just win football games. Find a quarterback and just win football games.
Less W's on the helmets, more W's in the standings, right?
For me, I want a fight song before a mascot. That's just me.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting.
All right,
Just
DC
saying.
Sports Huddle. Here we go. Other thoughts on our mind. We got the Wizards coming up, Caps. We'll start with you, Rob Woodfork.
Yeah, for me, it's the second half of the Wizards season. I'm curious to see how they integrate some of these new pieces that they got from the trade deadline moves that they made. And look, I'm not advocating for tanking per se, but you have Beal out for the rest of the season. You have an oft injured Kristaps Porzingis now. I would almost shut him down this season. And I'm going to use the San Antonio Spurs as an example of why I would do that. If you recall, back in the mid-90s, they were a team that was middle of the road. They were 4 seed, 5 seed in the Western Conference on a pretty perennial basis. And then they get David Robinson gets hurt. They suck for a year. And they end up with the first overall pick and Tim Duncan, and the rest is history. Now, I'm not saying that the Wizards are going to do that, but I mean, if we know the NBA is not like the NFL where you can get impact players, from the front of the draft to the back of the draft. Like really, you need to be in that top 10, top 15. So if the Wizards can get some more out of these young players that they're trying to build around, like Rui and Kispert and all those young guys, let's see what those guys have. Let's shut down Kristaps for the season and get him and Beal on the court together. And I know it's not going to be a popular sentiment, but I'm tired of them being 7-8 seed and trying to be in the play-in tournament and all this stuff. I would love to see the Wizards be a top 2 team
Preston.
and be in the conversation.
You going?
Or
You're gonna go. Yeah.
being in the conversation for the finals.
Yeah, the flip side of that, and I lived it. It was 1997-98 was the year David Robinson was not playing at all. They knew Tim Duncan was coming out, and I believe that was before the lottery was weighted. If not, I apologize for the mistake there. But they knew that. Dave Preston goes to do a sportscast. That's live here.
Yeah.
This is
beautiful,
great,
guys.
by the way.
Beautiful,
This is
guys.
great.
This is great.
Love this.
Yeah, there we go. This is how Letterman got his start. So, what I was saying was, I remember the Tim Duncan situation, 97-98.
Right.
Tim Duncan ends up being, and it worked out swimmingly for San Antonio. The reality is, and as the New York Knicks or so many other franchises, there's no guarantee that a lottery is going to advance your cause. And most recent game for the Wizards was in Brooklyn. And the 2013 draft was held at Barclays Center because that place was just open. So in the hallway in the Barclays Center, they have all the lottery picks from the 2013 draft, which included, by the way, Otto Porter was a lottery pick that year for the Wizards. As I went down it with Coach Wasanso and others, we said, there's probably only 2 or 3 guys out of that group that really panned out the way you thought they would pan out. The point is, you can tank, and unless you're going to get Tim Duncan, Rick Pitino's famous words, he wouldn't have taken the Boston Celtics job unless he knew that Tim Duncan, unless he could get Tim Duncan. And you're thinking, what are you talking about, Rick? This is a lottery. So I think the important thing now for the Wizards is you just play, and you're going to develop your young players, Denny Avdia, Corey Kispert, not by tanking, not by creating a culture of we're not going to play anybody. You see what happens, because I don't think there's any guarantee from the lottery. And I did see progress in making, the goal is not to get out of the first round to only make the playoffs. I did see progress by the fact that they accomplished what they did last year, came from 15 down and moved forward. Denny Avdia, Rui Hachimura got a lot out of that. Thomas Bryant. Now these guys are healthy. Let them play. Let them see what they can achieve.
Right.
Because there's no guarantee that getting a lottery position in this draft, and by the way, there's no guarantee you're going to get and at this point, with the number of wins the Wizards have accumulated, they're not going to get a top 3 pick. No.
And here's the thing. And again, let me reiterate, I'm not advocating for them to tank in that word. What I'm saying is, Beal is already out for the season. Your best player is not playing the rest of the year, period. Your next best player, based on his history, would be Kristaps Porzingis, and he is not healthy. So if he's not healthy, let him get all the way healthy, because the last thing you want is for him to have a setback. He missed an entire season with an ACL. So like knee injuries are something that he's got a little experience with here. So for me, it's it's about forget about this season. You're building for the future. You have Beal, that's a good piece. You have Porzingis, that's a good piece. Find out who else on this roster is a piece that you can build around, be it Rui, be it Kispert, be it, any of these young guys, and then, go forward with however it is, you want to proceed.
Porzingis right now, it's sooner than later he is going to play. It's a bone bruise he has.
Right.
And I absolutely think and that's their plan, get him out there, as soon as is healthy. They're not trying to rush him. They're not trying to, evidenced by the fact they pick him up for the trade, and they're still not rushing him in there. But, he needs to, it's not going to help him if he's, shut down for the rest of the season, doesn't start playing again until September, October. That's not going to help his progress. You can always get injured. You can shut a guy down now, and first preseason game, something happens. It's a wonder that the way these guys play and at the speed and what they do to their bodies, it's a wonder there aren't more injuries. These guys are just that incredible as athletes. So I think what we're going to see here is have at it, let these young guys develop and see where it goes. George?
Well, plus, and you don't want him to get the step on the court the first time in training camp with these guys, right? If you want a handful of games, to get under their belt. And look, the longer you play, forget the tanking part. The longer you play, the better you're going to get. The more, you get in, however you get into playoffs, whatever. Like Rob said, you're not going to get what are they? Just looking at the standings. I mean, the Pistons and Magic are 15, 14 games behind the Wizards. And, you look down the West, the same kind of deal, like at the bottom, the Thunder and the Rockets and the Kings. So like you said, they're not going to get that high of a lottery pick anyway. So I'm all for getting them healthy, getting them on the floor, see what you got. And look, you're only a game out right now of the play-in, right? What are they in? Is that right, Dave?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, a game. So,
Yeah.
Okay. Behind the Hawks and the Hornets.
So
What's that?
we don't let the facts in the way of a good story. If that's incorrect.
Yeah.
Right. They're not going to do it.
I'm all for get them on the floor and then see what happens. Nobody deserves to just coast the rest of the year. That's just me.
Dave Preston, great Beltway basketball beat as you gave your ranking of the Girl Scout
ranking.
Yeah.
Clear on this.
I get more feedback from that than I do from my weekly top 25 AP ballot.
But did you rank?
Yeah,
But
because
that's number
that
one.
was just like straight up blasphemy. You were talking about those cookie rankings, man. Come on.
Oh, well, the thing is, I think when you look at the final four of the cookies,
Thin
you
mints.
figure out who can win multiple ways.
Thin mints are the most overrated cookie in the history of
Dude, don't even. Are you? What are you smoking?
What
Overrated.
I like about
Overrated.
tagalongs, guys, is that tagalongs can play up tempo with the thin mints when need be, but they can also play the slowdown game.
They got rid of the best cookie. Those powdered lemon ones. Come on.
Oh, so Savannah Smiles.
I pulled my
Dave
daughter
Browns.
out. I pulled my daughter out of Girl Scouts after that.
Right.
Savannah Smiles were designed for my grandmother to eat while she was watching her stories and drinking tea.
I knew
How good is
after
that? Why'd you pull her
I
out?
watched
Because they got rid of the
Golden Girls
cookies.
while drinking my tea. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I knew
But,
after
we
23
talk about
minutes-
college. We talk about college hoops, guys, and I think the reason why we went, I doubled down on cookies this week was that it's been a rough winter. With everyone is from Maryland to Georgetown to even Howard plays well, and then they lay an egg Monday night against Coppin State. George Washington plays well, and then all of a sudden they can't stop Richmond the other night. There's the best shot maybe to get to the NCAA tournament is Dave Johnson's alma mater, Towson. Maybe also has a good shot.
I hear
But
that right?
I know exactly. Yeah. So I mean, it's
Just woke them up.
Virginia Tech are both on the bubble. It's not going to be an ideal March, but we're going to see some good hoops over the next couple of weeks. The A10 tournament comes to DC. That's always been a fun one to follow. It was a great tournament to follow 4 years ago, and I think VCU and Richmond are both peaking right now. So it depends on how wide we do the DC Metro net, but hey, VCU and Richmond all of a sudden become local schools along with Towson. We can do it.
Oh,
right,
don't forget about Virginia Tech. Don't forget about Virginia Tech before you get all the nasty phone calls. Don't get me started on that.
I think so,
Right.
man.
All right. Well, after this cookie debate, obviously friendships have been ruined, so there'll be no handshake line at the end of this DC Sports Huddle. But we appreciate your time. Send us your favorite cookies if you like.
Powdered lemon cookies. What's wrong with you? The lemon powder cookies.
The
Man,
DC Sports Huddle, at least last we checked, is still sponsored by the MGM National Harbor. It's time to change the game at BetMGM Sports. For
and the
Bob
powdered
Woodfork,
lemon cookies.
George
For now.
Wallace, I'm Dave Johnson. We might be back next week.
Right.
Greg